दिल कर ले गया चैन वो जैकी चैन का फैन थोड़ा कोरा थोड़ा टैन ओ वाह 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 ओ तेरे काले काले नैन
Hello and welcome to the Mega Engineering Tech, your favorite show about the engineering and technology related stuff. Welcome back. Sorry we've been absent. We blame it on coronavirus and all the other shenanigans that are going through. Today we have a very special episode. You guys are gonna love it. But before everything else, this is your host Goshe King.
I'm Joe Green, your host.
And we have a special guest with us today, Caleb, the legendary engineer, the master of all trades, jack of all trades, master of everything.
I don't think I can live up to that intro.
How is that for an intro, Caleb? We have a lot of hopes for this episode from you, Caleb, because you know, it's not like we know anything, and Caleb is gonna save the day, I think. So, we're gonna talk about a bunch of crazy stuff, right, Joe?
That's right. I think we have a pretty interesting show ahead of us.
Yeah, and surprise, surprise, it's about cars. Now, I think people will get sick of us talking about cars one of these days, Joe.
Yeah, they might. People like it, though. There's a lot to talk about.
There's a lot to talk about, especially, you know, like all the fancy cars out there. The new Bronco that's, you know, being all over YouTube. Oh, my God. What a gorgeous looking thing. Kayla, what do you think about that?
I almost got in on the pre-order. They're pretty sweet.
Yeah. Were you going to go like full whole shabil, like, you know, like has everything in it?
No, I kind of like that it starts cheap. You know, I kind of like that you can get one for like, you know, 30 grand brand new. I'd just, you know, do a 4-door with a manual and call it a day.
That's it. This podcast over. He thinks $30,000 is cheap.
Well, I mean, relative to, you know,
relatively speaking. No, I'm just messing with you, man. I'm just messing with you.
There's Wranglers that are $60,000 now.
Oh yeah, and what a piece of shit Wranglers are. Don't even get me started on those. We're not gonna waste this podcast on talking shit about Wranglers because I own one. Anyway. So anyway, guys, today we're gonna talk about classic cars and hot rods. First of all, I have no idea what's the difference. Caleb, you want to shed some light on what's the difference between a classic car and a hot rod?
Oh, I couldn't draw that line.
I would say Tim the Toolman Taylor, that's what I would associate with hot rods, like the cars that he did.
Oh.
And then classics would be more, I guess, like the old Mustangs and
muscle cars.
Stuff like that.
Yeah.
Or even like whatever, the FJ Cruisers, like the antique cars.
So those will be classic.
I think so.
And then any car that's kind of like you know, what's the word? It's reconditioned, restored, could qualify as hot rod. No.
I imagine restored could probably be either one.
Yeah, well, I guess that's true. I don't know. Either way, they're fun, right, Caleb? I mean, it seems to me that there is, you know, like you stumble upon the pictures of some of the nice cars out there, or, you know, like you go to some of these fancy car shows. Sometimes even bike shows have them, and you just like look at like this old, you know, 1964 and a half Mustang, and you go topless, you know, you go, look at this one, I want one. Cherry red, so great. Candy red, or, you know, sparkly paint jobs, you know,
flames on it.
Well, so I think I kind of want to you know, go through some of the things that revolve around having to own a classic car, and we're just going to refer to them as classic cars for the rest of the podcast. Hot rods or classic cars, same thing. Okay, everybody agrees?
Yes.
Okay, good.
With that.
So either one of you, I mean, okay, so we kind of already put this to bed as like, you know, like, okay, old cars that are, you know, just muscle cars or something like that, or, you know, like, I don't know, classic hot rods. But what do you guys think it takes to, find a car, an old, car that's sitting in someone's yard or garage, and they bought it, so they thought that they're gonna work on it and spend money on it and so forth, and do the restoration. Where would you find, like, what's the good way to find a deal on a car that you want to have, like, as a project car?
Well, you don't go to the trailer that's got 7 of them in the yard outside, because they couldn't fix any of them and get them running. They're all broken down.
Right. You would think that, like, that's where you find the deals though, right? Like, if someone couldn't fix it and they're just sitting there rusting away, mice are eating through whatever's already, busted anyways, you would probably want to grab that. And, like, you would probably be looking for, like, if you found an old farm where there was this car buried in, like, bushes, that's where you'd probably want to pick it from, because then you'd probably be able to, because my opinion, you go this route. First of all, this is not like a thing that you can do overnight, like, oh, I'm gonna spend a few weekends and I'm gonna have a really nice, no, no such thing, right, Caleb? Like, what do you think it takes to restore a car, like, time wise, like, timeline, like, consider, and let me wrap my question up. Consider that the car is just, it's got to be stripped. It's everything. I mean, from interior to, like, under the hood, everything's got to be, like, repaired, right? So, like, what do you think? Like 6 months of every weekend?
Yeah, I mean, if you're working full time, I would think that would be, minimum.
Right.
I mean, I've got a buddy that works full time, and he's been working on an old Willys truck, and he's been working on that for a year and a half. I mean, he probably has higher standards than you or I do, but
Speak for
yeah.
yourself. Yeah, so I feel like it could take a very long time. Obviously, I don't know. I'm kind of like one of those guys that can just scroll through his Facebook feed and then get bored very quickly, and then switch very quickly to, like, marketplace. And then in a marketplace, and I just go through. It doesn't matter what it is. It's like browsing, like, what are people getting rid of? I don't want any of those. I just look at it. And then sometimes, the cars pop up, some of the old cars. One of my favorite cars, and I'll talk about that maybe a little bit later, but it's Mercedes. And every time I look at that, something shows up, I look at it, it's like, what year is that? Because my classic, one of my classic dream cars is one of those old Mercedes, C200 and something, 260 or something like that. I think it was 1968 model. So that's one place you could find one. Craigslist is another one, although sketchy as hell. I've never had any good luck there. But
eBay, probably. I wonder.
eBay. Clunkers, I don't know. What do you think, Caleb?
I would maybe skip eBay.
Yeah.
It's got too many eyes on it. You're not going to get any crazy deals.
I wonder if there's, like, an auction for, like, damaged stuff. That's also old. Like, obviously they have auctions, for dealer auctions, at least I know of, that you can go to, where you can pick up, cars that were just totaled, and by total, it doesn't necessarily mean like they were physically totaled. They may just be in a flood, right? So the insurance company usually totals it because the amount of repair that's required or so forth is so much that, if a car is like 3-4 years old, they're like, forget it. So then, it's sold in the auction. Sometimes they have, like a bumper, a front bumper with, like, airbags deployed, right? And that's in the auction. But I don't know if I've ever seen a classic car in those type of auctions. What do you guys think?
I imagine probably, like Caleb said, the deals go pretty fast, and someone in the know might get it before you can even
think about it. I know, driving through, like, old country, I remember. So up here in north, I was heading towards Freiburg, Maine. Some of my in-laws live up in that direction. And there was a small town, Lovell, Maine, and it had a car repair shop. And it's just, like 2 car bays, and it's just set behind the, far away from the road, and it's big dirt, like yard he has a lot of clunkers standing there, and he had a couple of the old classic ones like muscle cars or something like that, and you go, I wonder how much he wants for for those. Maybe he has them to one day to restore them himself or something, but they just, and every time, years after years, I drove by, they've always been there, Um, so, and then there's a concept of, EMP proof cars. Who wants to talk about EMP?
Do you want? I'm not so up to speed on it.
So apparently there's this thing called electromagnetic pulse. And a lot of preppers that are really into preparing for EMPs. And what happens at the EMPs, which is like once a 500-year experience, and what happens is that you all the electronics, the electromagnetic waves just sort of fry the electronics, and so it renders anything that has any integrated circuit just useless. That's my understanding of it. So so bug out guys, or the guys who are all about zombie apocalypse or stuff like that, they always talk about vehicles that you can actually have and not worry about the electromagnetic pulses. And so there's there's like a laundry list of those vehicles, and I've looked on the internet, and I found that like there's a old 1985 or older Toyota Hilux. It's Hilux. I've never seen it here. I actually grew up with them in Pakistan. Everybody has them over there. And then there's like a commercial utility cargo vehicle. I don't think they make it anymore, but it's called CUC or CUCCV. And anything that's pretty much like pre-1980s that were like considered as pickup trucks, you can very likely find, like even in Chevy or Dodge or whatnot, you can find them. So there are a couple of options there, but I'm not sure what else you could pick up.
I was looking online. It looks like a lot of people pick up old muscle cars from barns.
Yeah.
And it looked like whether it's they purchase a property and it was just sitting in the barn and the owners didn't care about it. So then they find it covered under dust and restore it.
That's the way to do it if you really like want to save money.
Yeah.
Apparently it costs a lot, and I think we should touch on that in a little bit. But another one of my least favorite ones that you could do restoration on, and a lot of people do it, is obviously the Wranglers. So like the CJ, and I don't know what years those are, probably like 70s. Is that right, Caleb? Do you know?
It's 70s or 80s.
Yeah. So those were something that you could have for like, so you don't have to worry about the electromagnetic pulse for those guys who are into the prepping. We know a guy or two in our office, right?
Yeah.
Don't we? I'm not it, but sure, why not? Whatever floats your boat, right? And then the Wagoneers. I think some version of the Jeep Wagoneers. Pretty cool looking vehicle, actually. Probably still a piece of junk because Jeep made it, but there are those, and then older Land Cruisers, like Toyota Land Cruisers that were like 60s, 70s, same thing. I think even in the 80s they had like up to mid 80s. We have a colleague in our office who has one. I think his is 84.
The FJ.
Yeah. Yep, the FJ, yep. And that one might be.
Yeah, but it sounds like he has a lot of, I don't know if he still does, just issues with it.
Oh, yeah. No, old cars, of course. And it didn't seem to me that it's like fully like restored, like it's not like you can't really classify it as a classic car. You can classify it as an antique.
It's an antique, yeah.
For sure, but it's not like souped up, No.
Yeah, those I don't see. I'm sure it's probably cool to drive around, but I don't see the point of restoring something like that if you can't really, other than looks, I guess.
Yeah, true. I mean, it's just kind of like, I'm having an antique. but it's probably as junk as the Wrangler.
Yep.
Okay, Caleb, I have a question for you. So the international, is it called Scout or is
Oh, the Harvester
the
Scout.
Harvester Scout? That's it.
Those are sweet.
So, and they're kind of like common, like hot rods, classic cars. Like there are a lot of restoration projects that I've seen online. Like Pinterest is loaded with them. Topless. There is actually one in Laconia. There is a guy who's got an aqua, like turquoise colored Scout, and it's okay. I mean, he usually has a top on. It's like really flimsy looking thing. I'm not a big fan of that because it looks flimsy, but the rest of it looks pretty awesome.
Well restored, like well kept, I guess. It's pretty clean.
It's not like, it seems to be that it's restored, and it's not just it's not like, oh, okay, it's $100,000 car, maybe 50 or less. I don't know. I don't really know how much they go for, but I think they go around, like if you find like a semi classic, you can find them at like $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah, I think in good shape they're 20 to 30 or 40. If it's not, a showroom example.
Right. And Land Rover is another one of them. Like older, boxy looking. They're still boxy looking, but the older, like kind of look like Jeep kind of Land Rovers that were made in like pre 90s. Same thing. Like you can have an EMP proof vehicle and there's a lot of them. There's actually a showroom right on Route 16 between Ossipee and Conway. There's a lot of audience that is not from the state is going to say, what the hell are these guys talking about? But anyway, there is the shop that all he does, this guy, is just old Land Rovers.
Oh yeah, I thought it was like a mechanic that just like,
I think so,
works. Okay.
Yeah, he doesn't say like he's selling any of those, but
it always looks like they're all like junked up.
Yeah,
but then
5,
new
6 of
ones
them
too.
Yeah, like he's got them like in front of his shop. Like there's always 5, 6, 7 of them, but all of them are old. You never see a new Land Rover there, and I don't know what the deal with that is, but if anybody's interested, and then there's that option. But really, let's just define restoration. Let's just come up with something that says what in our opinion, what is a restoration? There's one type of restoration, let's just call it class 1 restoration and a class 2 restoration. Class 2 restoration, in my opinion, you would call it as just grabbing something old and making it so that it's antique and it's drivable, and you got the license plates and you drive it around, right? But it's not really made classic. Class 1 would be something that you would see in like a shows, right? That would cost thousands of dollars.
Kind of like polished up.
Yeah, like paint job, interior, all that. Caleb, you agree with that statement, man?
How about I agree with that too.
Yeah, okay,
that's the one you take to the county fair, but you don't drive on rainy days.
No. You keep it under a garage, in a heated garage, and that sort of thing. So, I browsing through the internet, I always find fun stuff. And then someone said then about classic restoration, and it has to be a labor of love. Like you can't, go into thinking that you're gonna do a restoration of a vehicle, old car that's rusty or very old, 30, 40, 50 years old, and you're gonna think that it's gonna be some sort of business for you. It's not really a career path, but although there are people who do this for living, and I have a feeling that those people, that's what their full-time jobs are. They have crews. They're very, very skillful, right? Because it takes so many skills. And I kind of want to talk about that. Like first of all, what kind of tools you would need if you wanted to do a restoration? Like what kind of workshop you would need? And I want both of you to give me some feedback. Like Caleb, especially, like tools, man. Like, okay, wrenches is one thing, but what else?
I mean, for classics, I think it always comes down to body work. I think that the paint and the welding and that, shaping the body back into place has a lot more to do with it than, mechanical work usually. I mean, your average person can do basic mechanical work, but it's really the body work that's so difficult and so, tool intensive.
Yeah. Joe, you didn't say I didn't let you in.
Yep.
You just got in.
Yeah.
What? Why didn't you say something? Crazy, this dude. He's like so mellow all the time. It drives me crazy.
Crazy.
So right. And welding is it's an art in itself. Like sure it's a skill, but like anyone can grab a welder and think that they can weld stuff, but it takes precision. Like if you're talking about classic cars, I mean your weld better be like smooth and uniform, right? Caleb.
Yes.
Looking for me?
Yeah, man.
I mean,
Yeah,
yeah.
all of you. Can't have pauses. Pauses are bad for podcast. Upholstery. My God, I mean like that's not an easy thing to do, right?
No, I picture when I think of restoring cars. I mean, home improvement with Tim the Toolman, and it seemed like a lot of it is just finding either the like replicas or of the original pieces or the originals, and just like that attention to detail kind of, I guess, adds a lot of the value to it as well.
Yeah, right. I mean, I've seen like some of the classic cars that are like high end classic cars, even like low end classic cars. Like even the Scout, for example. You can see like custom trims. Although, I say custom, a lot of times it appears to me that now with that vinyl technology, like the vinyl wrapping, people can make all kinds of like dashboards. So you never know if like it's a custom dashboard or if it's like, unless you really knew the cars inside out and you're like, this is original dashboard, but they did a trim work and added some like gadgets to it, so to make it look like all fancy. But quite possibly there could be custom things that I don't know if there's market. How big of a market is there? Like, where do you go find these things? I know there are websites that you can go and like find parts for, right?
Mhm.
But there's like no, it's like it's difficult. Like finding a good thing that's going to suit your vehicle like the way you want it, because everybody would want to restore it to their liking. Right? They're going to want to, like, I want this color, so then an interior has to be a particular color. I want a two-tone like upholstery that's leather, like that's diamond stitched or something, right? Those look really badass. I mean, they really look awesome. But who does that job? I don't have the skill. I may have the welding skill, or I can acquire that skill pretty quickly. I can do the sanding, the grinding, the cutting, the putting things back together. I could have a lift in my garage for that matter. I can do all those things. But when it comes to upholstery, I don't even know where to begin, right? Like there's no, you'll find a lot of information on YouTube how to weld. Is there a lot of information about how to do like custom cars upholstery, like carpeting, or the liner, the liner that goes on the ceiling? I mean, that's hard work.
Probably are. I've never looked into it.
Yeah.
25 minutes is up.
Okay. I'm gonna see if the camera is still rolling. So hang on. You guys continue. Keep talking.
I think it'd be pretty just sewing and gluing. What do you think? Have you ever upholstered a car?
I haven't done anything beyond fixing a sagging headliner, and that's pretty easy, but that's not restoration by any stretch.
Mm-hmm. I wonder. It's probably pretty easy to do. The seats, I guess you could get someone who does couches, that kind of upholstery, to do car seats and stuff like that.
That's true. I mean, I guess you don't have to buy like pre-made seats, although they do sell like car seats for, like sports cars and things like that you can, and most of them are like universal mount, so you can get them, but then have someone do like upholstery. Okay, it's so cheap in Pakistan, it's ridiculous. So I went back home. So when our Jeep Wrangler, I went home and I said I need car seat covers, right? And went to a shop, and I think we paid 4,000 rupees, and then the 4,000 rupees is kind of like, I'm gonna do a quick math here, because the dollar rate changes so much that it's different every time. So like, okay, so say it was 4,000 rupees, and with current, yeah, it's like 25 US dollars, man, for 3 and the leather, like two-tone. You know, I had a black in the middle and the tan on the outside. It didn't really quite fit perfectly, like as I hoped. I think they met all the measurement I sent, they didn't do it right. But you know, I didn't have a way to test it there.
Mhm.
So when I brought it here, and it's a little loose on because the top of the driver's seat and the passenger seat tapers in a little bit, so it's not kind of square or anything, you know. So that taper part of it didn't do it right. So there's like a little loosey goosey.
They kind of just made it like square.
They didn't make it square, but it's just not perfect fit,
Mhm.
you know. So it's kind of like, you know. I mean, it's still nice. It's much nicer than what the torn up upholstery we had on it already, you know.
Mhm.
But it's so much better than what I have. So it's cheap over there. I know it's probably really expensive in America, but there's that option. Don't call me and say, hey, can we give you dimensions and can you get us made something in Pakistan or India?
But if you had like a template or something, I mean, you
If I
could
had
almost, like,
template, yes.
make it, have them make a bunch.
Yeah.
And then
The-
you could sell them. And
You know, the yeah, I know that's true actually. If someone can come out with template and that's what they want to do for classic cars,
Yeah.
if like they look in the market, I can hook them up actually. I can give them a couple of phone numbers. That's not a problem. They'll pay a lot in the shipping though. You know, you may buy this at 4,000 rupees in Pakistani rupees to get that made, but then you're probably gonna pay another $100 for shipping, which may
So-
still be cheap. I mean, it'd still
Could
be
lose
like
a lot.
so cheap compared to, you know, if you were to try to find because I was looking at the seats for Wrangler
Mhm.
just when I was looking for so I found like plain simple seats were like 190, 180 bucks without the shipping, you know. So I decided like, well, maybe I can save some money here and have something custom, and I did, and it didn't really quite work. But then by the time I was acquainted with the Jeep, I says, F this shit.
It's not worth it.
It was so not worth it. One of my weaknesses, if you will, I can do a lot of mechanical or handy work, like wiring, electric wiring when it comes to vehicles, and I have no idea where to even begin. So I suppose when you're doing restoration, maybe it's worth hiring a car mechanic who's, you know, good with electric. I don't know. What do you think, Caleb?
I mean, I've done a little bit of my own wiring on some of my older cars. The big thing was like, you know, finding the manufacturer specific forums and, you know, finding the person that had, you know, routed it out once already and wrote down the wiring colors. And it was funny enough, the Volkswagen that I was working on when I did this originally, the factory guide had the wrong colors in it. You know, whoever drew it up in Germany sent it to Mexico, and they just put whatever colors they wanted in there and didn't match it. So you had to go on the Volkswagen Vortex and, you know, find out what colors were actually the ones you were looking for.
Oh, that is way too funny. So tell us more about your project that you worked on, because that's a revelation that I did not know about.
Yeah, it was just it was an older Jetta, and the instrument cluster and the radio was all wonky. So it was, you know, some shorts going on behind it, and tore the whole dash up, and, you know, started hacking.
Wow, when was this?
I was probably 16. It's my first car.
Wow. So you so what exactly did you like? I mean, you got an old car and you sort of like restored it for it to drive around, or you just customize it? What did you do?
Restoration's a little too much verbiage. I mean, it was just a fix of a issue that the car had.
Yeah.
You know, it was just making sure I had heat and air conditioning.
Which
it never had air conditioning.
That's do old Beetles, like the, you know, the ones that are like boxy old Beetles, did they ever have air conditioning?
I think they did, but the motor's air cooled, so there's quite a bit of heat getting put off as it is.
Right. Funny thing is that those who don't know, the engine on the VW Beetles is in the trunk. I don't know if it still is, but it used to be. And the hood area is your like baggage area. Like it's big, massive space that you could store bodies in. I didn't say that, did I? There you go, the non-aggression principle, guys. Talking about bodies, putting in the VW bugs. Anyway, so I think, in my opinion, it's a lot of skills required to do this, right? You've got to, and then I actually want you guys to correct me if I'm wrong on this list. I think you got to start with once you get an old car, you got to strip it. You got to remove all the trim work from the body. Then you got to start removing the body. Then you separate the chassis from the body. Oh no, I missed a step. You also, I think probably one of the first steps is also to like remove everything from the inside, like upholstery, seats, dashboards, all of that, right? And document everything. I think like photo document, verbal document, written down documentation, so that you know what you removed. Oh, I don't even know how many baggies you would need to put, like nuts and bolts and screws in, right? It can be pretty daunting work. Mm-hmm. So you've got to strip it. Then and this is just prep work. You got to unattach all the wiring before you could even remove anything. To remove an engine or any of the electrical components, it's a lot of harnesses and wires that you have to unhook first. Make notes of what goes where, right? And then start removing, nut and bolt at a time. I mean, oh my God, the amount of patience this thing will require. Oh, it probably takes special people.
Yeah, like you said, it's labor of love.
Yeah, you got to put your blood and sweat in it. And apparently, like, if you want to replace anything, right? Like, if you want to really like replace parts for some of these old cars, if you wanted to replace an engine, I don't even know if you'll find one. And if you find one, that's great. Probably will cost you a couple of grand, and that's not a big deal, And even if the engine is not in perfect condition, maybe you can buy rebuild kits to rebuild the engine, right? Make sure all the gaskets are, new, things like that. But let's talk about engine upgrades. Both Joe and Caleb, what do you think would, like, say if I had a car, I don't know, pick one, Ford Mustang, that originally had, I don't know, 320 horsepower motor in it. And now that they make like 700 horsepower motors for Camaro. I don't know if that's true. I'm just throwing it out there. Can I put that in there? Like, what stops me from replacing that motor with a bigger, fancier motor, newer motor, for example?
I imagine it's just making sure that it's not too much power for the car with all the pieces and all the bolts and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But that's probably something that's been encountered before, and I'm sure.
Caleb's doable or no?
Yeah, as long as your drivetrain can handle it, like Joe mentioned. If the drivetrain can't take it, you're upgrading that too.
That's true.
And it's not always a 1-to-1, mating up the engine to the transmission. Sometimes there's a conversion kit that has to happen there. Sometimes it just can't happen at all.
Yeah, I suppose it would depend on the car, but I guess you'll have to do a lot of study to find out, like, if someone has already done it, and what kind of motor that they use, and maybe, yeah, man, there's probably not enough support out there to really like figure it out, like, like right off the books. Like, it's not something that you'd find on a shelf. You'll have to do a lot of digging.
Except for the LS1, people have put the LS1 in everything.
I'm gonna have to look that up.
What's an LS1?
The LS1, it's the Chevy small block from it was like early 2000s Corvette and Camaro.
Well, how many horsepower? I'm curious now.
I want to say they were 350 for the LS1.
Oh, that's plenty.
Can I put that in a Subaru Crosstrek?
I'm sure somebody has.
LS1, that's interesting.
Although it's tricky, motor swaps on Subarus are pretty tough because it's such a compact. The horizontally opposed engine's so compact. There's not much room in the engine bay.
That's too bad.
So back in the day, most of these cars had like straight engines, like boxer type engines, and if you wanted to replace it with like say V4, V6 or something, I would think that they take less room. Just from the design point of view, like now you have a V6 or something, and then instead of your pistons moving this way as a boxer engine, right now you're moving this way, so maybe it's vertically tall, but on a footprint maybe it's smaller. Caleb, am I smoking crack now? What am I saying?
I think it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other, isn't it?
Really?
I don't know.
Maybe you're right. I don't know much about them, to be honest. Physical sizes, because I mean, so the Wrangler has a V6 in it, and it's a straight V6, and it's pretty big. The engine block is huge.
Yeah,
But
the 4.0, the old 4-liter straight six.
Yeah, it's a 4
Yeah, those
liter
are
straight
unkillable.
six. Yeah, but there, if you open the hood, there's like a lot of room in there. So it seems like you could fit. One of the things that you have to look for is to, like, every engine will have a different mounting requirements. So like engine mounts will be different. If you were to replace your engine with something from another car or like a newer engine, whatever the case may be, you'll have to look at how it's mounted. So engine mounts, some of the motors only require 2, sometimes 3, sometimes maybe even more. And you may have to do some customization under the hood. That can happen. So it's like, it's not like, oh, I can just pick this. You can't just say, well, I'm going to swap a Honda V4 with the Toyota V4 or whatever, naturally aspired 4-cylinder, internally combustible engine. Not that simple, in my opinion. It's going to be some work that you would need to do. But here's what, somebody probably is already asking the question, and they're probably wondering, like, well, so in America, if you've been to other countries, okay, and in one of the podcasts we talk about this, because we had this like podcast where we said, gas guzzlers are for lame people. Remember that podcast?
Yep.
And in there, I was talking about the Fiat 500L, I think, the little mini SUV that they have, right? In Europe, they make that with a third row seating, and they also offer it in diesel. You cannot find a diesel in North America. I don't know about Mexico. I know you cannot in Canada or America. I already looked, right? Because I was very interested in it, in the diesel. So somebody's probably sitting there listening to this podcast and saying, well, okay, I've got a car. It doesn't matter. It's not a very old car. Or it's a classic car, like that's more than 30, 40 years old. Doesn't matter. What if I want to convert it into diesel? What do you guys think? Can the cars be converted into diesel easily? Caleb?
I mean, it's 2 different types of compression that you've got. On gas, you've got ignition, and then diesel's by compression, right? You've got ignition coils as opposed to spark plugs.
That's right.
So I don't think it's an easy task.
I think it's doable. I think it takes a lot of work, but I think it's doable. Obviously you have to replace a whole lot of crap in there, but you're essentially getting rid of more stuff and putting less back in. So I think it's doable. It's just, I don't know if people have done it. I think it'd be a neat project to do.
I only know of people who've gone from like diesel to vegetable oil kind of stuff. Like,
yes.
they use cooking oil.
Boy, I forgot about that. Yes.
No one that's
biofuels
gone from like gasoline to that.
To diesel.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so SUVs, American SUVs are all, this is where I was leading to. I think I've mentioned that in the previous podcast. Our SUVs, no matter how big or small they are, they're all petrol.
Mm-hmm.
By petrol, it means, regular gasoline, right? 87, 89. If you buy an Escalade, and as stupid as I was, then you got to put in the 93 in it, right? And you got to pay for that, right? But in other countries, Asia in particular, like you can go to Dubai, for example, right? You can find all the fancy cars that they're made in the world. You would find cars that are not even common in America, and they have them in Dubai. Those cars are all diesel. Toyota Corolla is a small bloody car, okay? Toyota Corolla in most Asian countries comes factory 2.0 diesel. Can you believe that? Okay, Volkswagen Jetta. Caleb, is that right? One of the or a few of their models at least used to be diesel.
I think you could get their whole line in diesel before that whole scandal. You could get the Sportswagen and the Golf. I think the Tiguan you could get in diesel too.
Yeah, Tiguan I understand because it's bigger. That's amazing. Like you could get the Golf. Like Golf is a hatchback. It's kind of like the same size as the what's the one? I don't know. I'm having a blank at the moment. It's we were just talking about the car. Caleb, you mentioned that the make is very hard to work on because Subarus. Yes. So Subaru Impreza, the hatchbacks. It's kind of like the same category, I feel like. Maybe Impreza is like faster and fancier and expensive and all, but Golf, I used to know someone who had a Golf, and it's just
they're pretty solid cars.
Solid cars, yeah.
The Volkswagen.
Yeah. I also had a friend who had Jettas. No, not Jettas. What is the one, the hatchback? What's the other one, Caleb? Not the Impreza, but the other. GTI or something.
Oh, yeah, that's on the Golf platform.
In 2 years that I've known him, when he used to live around where I live, he had 3 of them. He bought used, but not like terribly used. And, like no more than 10, 15 years old. And every single one of them, he had to replace motor in it. Every single one of them. We have a common friend, all of us, won't say his name, but he helped them replace a motor, and I saw it. The whole thing went down. I mean, it was done in one afternoon. Not completely, but, taking the old motor out, putting the new one. It was easy, actually. It was a lot easier to work on. But the consensus was, like, don't buy VWs. I don't know.
Was it bought because it was, like, cheap and...
I think that a lot of people beat them because they're little, sporty cars. People drift on them and something. And if, you don't not, maybe, I don't know. What do you think, Kayla? You think they're made bad, or they're just people treat them like shit?
I think it's probably a combination of both. I mean, I think that Volkswagen had some crappy build quality in like the 90s and 2000s. I think the newer ones have kind of come around a little bit. I test drove a Golf when I bought my last car, and it was decent.
A friend of mine, long time ago, 2004, I think, 3 or 4, he bought the brand new Golf hatchback, blue, beautiful looking car. And I think 30 or 35 miles he drove it, and the transmission went. Brand new, brand spanking. Obviously, it was covered, under the warranty and all. And so they fixed it. And he drove it for another 6 months. Guess what? Gone again. Yeah. It was and so from that day I said, I don't know about these cars, And then obviously I had a personal experience with Chrysler, and then later on Jeep. I'm still having the experience.
Yep.
Don't ask me why I haven't gotten rid of it. It's just only because, let's just not go there. Well, for the just, I'm getting sidetracked, but the Chrysler Sebring I had the convertible. So it won't start. The battery was weak or something. And I'm looking and I can't find the damn battery, And sometimes it would start and sometimes it would not. And I knew there was some battery issues. So I bring it to the shop, and then I say, where's the battery in this thing? Is it under the seat? I looked on the back seat. I can't find it. It's not in the trunk. He started laughing. He says, come on, let me show you. He puts it on the thing. He takes the driver wheel off. I think it was driver. Maybe it was passenger. I can't remember now. He removes the wheel. He removes the little guard. It's right there. And I go, what?
That would make no sense.
That makes no sense. So there's that about Chryslers. So Chrysler changed their name, right? No.
Daimler Chrysler or something like that.
Is that what it is?
I don't
Like
know.
the Dodge Rams are called Ram now. Isn't that right?
Yeah, I think they just separated their line out.
Oh,
So
is
like
that?
Jeep is its own deal, Ram's its own deal.
Oh, okay, that's what happened. Yeah, that's how much I know about them. I mean, now the Ram looks really badass. Their souped up Ram is like really awesome.
Oh, yeah, I think there's a new one in our parking lot, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty badass. I mean, pickup trucks, they just drive rough. I don't know. So on the back to the classic car fiasco that we're talking about. So we touched on our dashboards and trims a little bit, and then I suppose you could either have a custom, if somebody's selling a custom dashboard with all kinds of gadgets in it, right, Caleb? Or you could just have like vinyl wrapping done.
Hmm.
Like that could be another thing.
It's only temporary though, correct?
Yeah, I mean, if it's inside, right, and if it's heat treated or something like that, or whatever, I suppose it could last you a couple of years easily. One of our cars, Chevy, has that, and it's the interior one is fine. The exterior one is kind of like, it's got a little couple of wrinkles on it, but it's easier to do. Like you just get the wrap, you put it on where you want it, use the heat gun to put it on. And there's so many YouTube videos, and there's all kits to do it. And then once you're done, once you're happy with the finish, it's all smooth. Then you just use those razor sharp blades to just go around the edges and cut the excess off, and it's there. And it's supposed to last at least a year, if not 2 years. I say that, but where we live here, when it gets like -20 around here,
Yeah.
oh my God, bets are off, man. There's no place to test any of that technology. I would probably do plastic dip before I would do any of that. But that, there's options out there, I suppose. Okay, so I think my conclusion, I don't know about you guys, is that classic cars are not for everyone. At least the restoration project. I know it's not for me. I don't have time. I mean, it's labor of love. I do have the desire to do it, like, 'cause it's satisfying, like working with your own hands and like starting from scratch and putting it together. I mean, it could be so much fun. I'm getting excited about it. But no, like, it's time and money. Like, from reading the blogs and reading the different, like, avenues where people talk about these things, that people spend $60,000-$70,000 and years into this stuff, right? Like, it's not for everybody. So no, if it's not for everybody, but they still want their cars, maybe like my car is, I don't know, 7 years old, right? Your car's like 2 years old or brand new, whatever. Caleb's, drenched in dollars, so his probably brand new. What can we?
I think it's 6 years old.
Oh, is it really?
I'm too cheap to buy new.
You haven't changed it yet?
No.
Wow.
I'm waiting on that Bronco.
Nice. Yeah, Bronco, man. I mean, oh man, if you make money, that's a really sweet rig.
It is sweet.
What can you do? What kind of things you can do to improve your own vehicle?
Get it detailed.
That would be a good step. Yes.
Clean up the Dunkin' bags and the
Car wash.
Car wash, yeah. Put a mud, like mud catching those things in it. Like, what do you call those? The weather something.
Oh, the mats.
The mats. Yeah. So that all the mud and spring mud that we have around here in New England, all the ice, not the ice, the salt. The snow melt salt that people throw on their driveways. It's nasty. So you have to like get rid of that. What else?
The only thing I know of, and never looked into this too much personally, I was talking to a friend and he was mentioning how you can, especially nowadays with engines that have chips in it and that stuff, you can more or less get like updated code from someone to tune your car to try to tweak your performance of the engine, which it sounded like a pretty, I don't know, like a very interesting process where you're getting code from someone else and who knows where, and you plug it into your computer, your car, you update it, you see how it does, and then you can like get data. You kind of keep going back and forth to provide feedback for him. They tweak their programming and you can kind of continuously tune your vehicle for like optimal performance.
So, what happens if your car is still under warranty, and if you do that, wouldn't it like violate the warranty?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah,
Yeah.
more than likely.
Yeah, I think you would be more or less gone with all that stuff. And you probably run a risk of getting, well, who knows, someone who doesn't know what they're doing. Obviously, I'm sure, do your research, pay some money, make sure it's done right. You ever do that, Caleb?
I haven't done that. No, it's generally like turbo or supercharged cars where you can kind of tweak the boost to bring power up easily. And I've never owned a turbo car, so it's like, I don't think the tunes net anything for you unless you've got some sort of forced induction.
So it's sort of probably pointless on most vehicles. That's good to know.
Yeah, I think so.
What about the kits you can get like for turbo boost, like air intake kits, like those that comes with like a little external sort of like a filter. You know what I'm talking about, Caleb?
Yeah.
So what do you know about those?
I put one on one of my cars. It's the engineering nowadays is good enough that I feel like the factory boxes are less and less restrictive. I mean, they're trying to find gains anywhere they can just to meet, emissions and, fuel mileage minimum. So I feel like nowadays that's net zero. It doesn't gain you anything.
We got to have another podcast maybe in a few years because our audience will get pissed off, but we got to have a podcast about the crap that EPA does to actually Eric Peterson. I think his name is Eric Peterson, who runs he's one of our libertarian guys who runs a website and he does a lot of testing and so forth on vehicles. So he's a automotive journalist, and he talked about it, like what are the problems with this whole EPA restrictions and so forth. So I don't even want to go there because it's already covered by someone. So I guess you could do like vinyl wrapping to your car, interior, exterior, but that's, a skill it's not too terrible that you can acquire it if you practice enough. And on the internet, the vinyl stuff is cheap now. Like you can buy, rolls of this stuff from Amazon and just practice on something first, until you're more or less comfortable with it. And stickers is another thing. Like you can buy custom stickers online and put it on your vehicles. Other things
you could lift up your car.
Well, yeah, that's too.
Big tires.
Yeah, or lower it.
Yeah, hydraulics.
Or hydraulics. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. You could do that, but I don't know. Like, how much skill is involved, do you think, when lifting or lowering your car?
Are you doing suspension or suspension and body?
Yeah, I don't. You tell me.
Well, I think suspension lifts are pretty easy. That's just replacing your springs with taller springs or coilovers. But I think
does it take spacers? Like, do you have to add spacers and like where the mounts are?
I think spacers are the cheap approach. I'm not too familiar with it, but I think spacers are like the cheap, gonna make the car ride hard approach.
Right. That's
and
a good point.
The newer springs are the better option there.
And often these springs are adjustable too, I'm seeing. I don't know how much adjustability is in them, but apparently you can adjust them a little bit. I think that's more for a comfort.
I've seen coilovers with like 2 to 3 inches of adjustability.
Wow,
I mean,
that's insane. That's huge.
Pretty good.
That's the difference between, dragging getting out of your driveway and, driving over the speed bumps at 30 miles an hour.
Right. Yeah. No, that's amazing, actually. Didn't realize that. Other things that you probably could do is improve your audio systems. If you're young and noise doesn't bother you, I'm getting old, so subwoofer is just too late for me, but you could add one, right?
I remember when I was younger, it definitely seemed like the cars that rattled were much more common. I imagine now your stock sound systems are better.
Yeah.
I don't
Well,
know.
it depends on what you're driving. I have two cars, in fact,
Yeah.
out of the three, and two of them are just terrible sound systems. It's just like, you know, your $5 speakers that you could buy off a dollar store,
Mhm.
they probably sound better.
Yeah.
One of them is Chevy, the other one is a Jeep Wrangler. Unbelievable, guys. You know, in-dash
Mhm.
audio system, right? Like off of Crutchfield. Did I say it right? The website, the Crutchfield, they sell like car or home audio stuff.
I don't know that one.
I think it's Crutchfield.
Yeah, I've used them before.
Crutchfield, Field, right?
They've pretty intentionally made it more difficult too to replace stereos and sound systems. They're all like funny sizes now. There's all these like, you know, the stereo's built into the dash and it's, you know, oval shaped or this big triangle. Like they're not the nice, you know, in the 90s and the 80s where they were all that, you know, 2.5-inch slot. It was all the same size.
Let's get into that a little bit. Actually, we this is something that, you know, has recently come up, and I think I want Caleb you to lead on that, because what's happening in Massachusetts? What are they trying to do? What kind of laws they're trying to pass in reference to the repairs of cars?
Yeah, on their
nice.
upcoming vote, they're voting on, you know, right to repair and whether, you know, manufacturers can hold that data confidential or whether, you know, it has to be open source and be provided to the consumer in some form or fashion.
So is it for new cars, old cars, all of the above? What's happening?
It's only for new, and I think the law was looking at 2021 going forward.
That if you owned a car and you needed to do some repair, and was it any repair? Like what if it was just tire replacement and like brake job?
No, it was specifically targeting like vehicle diagnostics and, you know, pulling codes and, you know, getting readouts as to, you know, trouble codes of the vehicle.
The check engine lights or any lights that show up in your dashboard, that type of diagnostic would be something that they would prohibit for you to buy a device and plug it into your car. You know, the little OBD sensors, Joe, you just stick it
They're
right
trying
under
to
your car.
Prohibit people
Yeah.
from doing this.
Yeah.
So right now they can.
Yeah.
No. They're trying to. So there's a certain level of diagnostic that's already required by that OBD, and then some manufacturers go above and beyond that, and they have, you know, specialty tools that you need to read, you know, what's going on. And I know, you know, some of the German manufacturers are, you know, big offenders, and Tesla's a big offender too. Like you can't diagnose anything on a Tesla. And Massachusetts is trying to, you know, establish a common language that, you know, everyone has to speak so that the consumer can have one scan tool and, you know, have the right to see what's wrong with it and diagnose it.
How do you feel about that, Joe?
I mean, I can see, obviously it's nice if you can have one tool that does it all. I'm curious to see how well it's actually executed. If it's like a government mandated tool that they have to use that has it all, or if it's just that for now on it has to be like an open source, whatever programming from the manufacturer's part. And
You know,
it's nice. I mean, if you, the convenience of the consumer, the body shop worker, to have one tool is probably good. But imagine someone who has a Tesla will probably just, I don't know, if there is a Tesla tool, buy it. I have heard that some of those cars, yeah, like are very hard just in general for non-company dealers or non-company workshops, body shops to work on. So I think if they're able to make it more easily available for like your average body shop to work on the Teslas and the specialty cars, I mean, that's a good thing. It should make it cheaper for it to all work.
This one is I gotta read up a little more on this.
Yeah.
I want to know what more I'm always against regulation. That's the libertarian stance on 99.999% of the time. And so I'm gonna stick with that. I'm gonna say no regulation is good regulation. But and as far as this thing goes, I do have a feeling that, whatever the mandate happens, Chinaman will come and help us. Chinaman's always broken laws, right? American laws. I love them. So what they do is they copycat. And the minute the single tool shows up, Chinaman's going to copy it. And I'm going to be all over that shit. So I'm not too worried if that does pass. And it's obviously heading in the wrong direction for sure, as far as the regulation goes. Because once you what's the public choice theory? Once you go in that direction, first day you make one regulation that sounds great to everybody. Second day you make another one that is a little harsher than the first one. And then you start to violate people's rights. And next thing you know, a few years go by down, people who started this trend are long gone because their terms are over or they died. And then the new generations are stuck with this progressive abuse of power and progressive, restrictions after restrictions because they didn't do it right the first time. So then the second time they're like, let's make it a more tighter, and then just this vicious cycle continues. So it'll never be an end to that. So I don't know. I'll have to see what that means. One thing that I totally forgot to mention, we were talking about like conversions, the diesel and all, is the electric vehicle conversion, because Caleb just mentioned about Tesla and their monopoly over this crap. And we were also talking about the Volkswagen Beetle stuff. And apparently there are kits out there that you could actually convert your cars with to electric. And some of them are like, for example, there's a website called evwest.com, and they have like a whole bunch of kits, and like for a Beetle, for example, old ones, I'm talking about 60s, 70s, 80s models, you can stick the whole axle. It gets replaced with the whole axle. It comes with a kit. Actually, there are a couple of options. One is like you have a adapter kit that's, I don't know, it takes from the motor to something else to the, it goes directly onto your differential. So there's like a little bracket of some sort, like an adapter that transfer power, and then you're able to do that. And then you locate all the batteries and everything in the front, while most of your controls, like speed control and everything, and the motor is in the trunk of the Beetle. So there's like a whole bunch of options out there that are available for electric conversions. And I'm not sure exactly what type of batteries they use, but there is a something that I found interesting was called Plug Bug Project. So if you ever wanted to know more about the what that would look like, and we would include most of these links in the show notes too. But it was called Plug Bug Project, and I think it was published on CorbinStreetHouse.com, if I'm not mistaken. I have some of these already saved up, so again, we'll link to that. And that seemed pretty interesting to me that some of these guys were able to. And I looked into the sizes of the motors that they were using. Obviously, the battery amp hours matter, how much charge they can hold and how much they can provide. But one of the kits electric motor was 79 horsepower, and compared to internal combustion engine, 79 horsepower is not all that much. In fact, Chevy Spark, the little car, 4-door Chevy Spark that they make, it is an 85 horsepower motor, and that car sucks. Like on a hilly areas, up hills, it's just terrible. What do you guys think?
Well, was that per axle, or was that for both rear?
One motor. It was one motor, so it was one rear. Yes.
So,
in that option, yeah. Well, I mean, if it was two, then yeah, you're right. That would be pretty awesome.
I was gonna say with two, that's a decent number. I mean, 160 is not. I mean, you're not gonna blow anyone away at stoplights, but that's livable.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's and I'm sure there are other kits out there. I did find some of the other ones where they had these, and I think there are different ways of doing it. I suppose you can buy an axle or you can get a conversion kit. there are some axles, pre-mounted motors available for some of the smaller frame cars. In Asia, they have these cars that are essentially a motorcycle enclosed in like a body, So for those, you can buy those axles with motors mounted directly on them with the whole 9 yards. It's got the little brake kits on each side, or you can buy them separately to assemble. And I think they're supposed to go in the rear of the car, not in the front. Yeah, so there are a few things that I thought that they were pretty interesting. Volkswagen in 2018 had announced that they were going to come with, come out with a conversion for their minibuses. They call them the minivans, maybe the minivans and the VW. And I'm not sure if that ever happened.
I do see one on that EV West website for the VW bus. $8,000.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
$600.
Yeah, that sounds right. And I'm going to include some links. So there's a website called trucknews.com, and they have this. There's an article about the driving force axles are the heart of an electric revolution. And in that article, the guys discussing a couple of different options, but those are pretty fascinating. They're just on a larger scale, so not necessarily for smaller cars, but maybe school bus size, or maybe even larger pickup truck size. I didn't get to read the whole thing, but there's a couple of manufacturers, Dana, D-A-N-A, and Meritor, have a couple of tier 1, tier 2 options based on that website. So it was a quick read. And of course, that I forgot what it read, because I read so much in preparation for this that I overwhelmed myself with the information. But so I found that in a couple other places where you could find those kits, to do the conversion. So looks like maybe in the future we have more options to maybe able to do that. And I think it would be a lot more simpler, for doing the conversion. But the one that the Volkswagen announced, it was some company in Germany, I believe, and it was essentially, as you can think of it, as a part chassis, like front end maybe, or a rear end, but it was fully assembled, with all the shocks and the brake systems and everything ready to go. And that was pretty fascinating to know. And then
so do you kind of just plop the body on top of it?
I'm sure it's a lot more than that.
Yeah.
It's I suppose. I'm not really sure. I mean, it's designed to fit certain vehicles.
Yeah.
Or supposed to be. And they were supposed to start up production in 2018, but that was just articles. And then I did not really necessarily find that if they were actually doing that,
That would be kind of neat, though, if you could, just go to a junkyard and get the shell and then get a electric frame to fit.
Yeah. What was fascinating about that is that, once you have it, it's, obviously it would cost a lot of money. I don't know, $10,000-$20,000. And yeah, but if you're only driving 20, 30 miles a day, kind of deal. So, with the amp hours that you have on the battery and the horse, say if it was an 80 horsepower, in that particular option, the one of the EV guys, we're saying that this particular one can go up to 100 miles. Okay. And obviously they had certain, it has to be in, this speed and that, distance and this type of train and all that, obviously that changes with where you are. But I thought that was pretty cool to, something to think about. Does it really have to be a, gasoline engine or gasoline vehicle? Can it be an electric conversion,
Do you know, are people doing that with classic cars? Do you know, making them into electric?
Volkswagen for sure.
Yeah.
60s models, that's for sure. Or the Volkswagen minivans.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen that.
But I guess with the muscle cars, you would just have to add in some outside speakers or get the sound and the feel of it, probably.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right, so I've got a question for all of you. What is your favorite classic car? I, in fact, want to know at least two of your options if you have any. Caleb, do you have a list of classic cars that you really want to have one day?
I have a couple that I'd consider buying. There was a car in the early 90s called the GMC Typhoon. You ever seen it? It was on the Jimmy chassis. It looks like a mini Blazer, but Chevy went a little crazy with it, and it had a 4.3 liter twin turbo V6.
What year was it?
It was early 90s. I want to say like 90 through 93 they made them. And so it looks like a Jimmy from the outside.
It does look like a Jimmy.
They're super fast.
Are they really?
It was the same 0 to 60 as the Ferrari 348 that year.
Get out of town.
Yeah, they're awesome. They're so cool.
Two-door.
Yeah.
Wow. I don't think I've ever seen this in like real life.
I've seen two of them. One of them was in rough shape, and one of them was really cool. And it's tough to pick up on them. I think the front bumper is different than a regular Jimmy. I think that's how you pick up on them quickly. But
nice.
They're sweet.
Yeah, no, it looks sweet, and it's kind of like a boxy looking thing, and I think that body restoration can't be all that difficult.
Oh, and they're a total sleeper too. I mean, you could smoke some pretty nice cars at stoplights with this thing.
Really? Yeah, they look like fun.
Yeah, they made one. There was one called the Cyclone too that was the same thing, but it was on the pickup body. It was based on the Sonoma.
They look like little lowrider SUVs.
Right.
I think they lowered it too to get better track times on it. I'm not sure on that, but
That's pretty neat.
it looks lower than a regular Jimmy.
What else would you go with?
Well, I was going to ask you what.
Well,
What you
when I
get
was
for-
on this electric conversion site, I really don't not too into the cars, but I saw the Porsche 356 Speedster, and that looks like it would be a pretty slick looking vehicle to drive around. Almost looks like a mini spaceship or something like that.
That's the Stuart Little car, isn't it? Isn't that what Stuart Little drives?
Is it really? I was going
I
to say it
think
looks
so.
like a James Bond vehicle as well, but
Yeah.
I would take Stuart Little. I think that, and then like a old Bronco, either a Bronco or a Land Cruiser or something like that. That would be powerful and great off road.
Are Broncos
fun.
really what the old like 60s, 70s? Were they? Well, first of all, like people will call you OJ.
I guess they're. I just know they're like, I think decent just because you can trash them. They're probably not great if you're actually doing serious off road.
Yeah,
but just running through a desert or something like that.
That's true. I'm kind of with you. So my second, or maybe third, my third choice is a 1960s, one of the 60s model Bronco. You know, topless maybe. Caleb, what's your second car, man?
The one I've actually, kind of considered getting as a project for myself, but I've never pulled the trigger is the BMW 2002. It was BMW's first foray really into the American sports car market, and they're small, they're light, they look really cool. Yes. I think it's one of those cars that's actually going to appreciate in value because it was.
Hey, if you ever find
how
like
they broke it.
If you find one of these that you can think and restore, let's restore the sucker.
Yeah, I mean it was what broke BMW into the American market, and they look so cool. I love the round lights.
There is a movie called Fracture. I don't know if you ever seen it. Fracture is I'm gonna look it up. It's pretty bad that I should know the names of the actors, but I actually suck at names. So Fracture. Did I spell it right? That's the first important thing. And yes, I found it. Fracture was 2007. And it's Roslin guy. What was his name? Ryan Roslin
Gosling?
and Anthony
Oh.
Hopkins. Yeah, that's it. And in that there is a BMW that Roslin drives. And I was all over that. So that was one of my, but I never knew what the year of that car was. The 2002 though. That looks badass, man. I just looked it up. It's like so amazing. I may have a change of heart here, guys. 2002 BMW. That's amazing. Beautiful looking thing.
They're small though. I
Small,
don't know
yeah.
if I would actually fit in one.
You are tall.
That's true. Do you ever think that really limits your vehicle choice sometimes?
Oh, absolutely. There's so many that I like can't put the seat far enough back to drive comfortably.
Joe, you've given your 2 cars already, right?
Yeah.
Did I miss one? No. All right, so my turn. My most favorite is 1968, around that era. Mercedes 280 or 200 series. I'm not sure exactly if it was 280 SE. And I think there is another version of that is I want to say it's more like it's diesel. So it's one of the series is gasoline. The other series I believe is diesel, and that's one of my favorite cars. So if I ever get a chance, I would actually try to get one of those convertible. And then my second choice is the Bronco, 1960s Bronco, for sure. And then my third one, wasn't gonna go that route, but I do have a third one. Actually, I mean, between the second and the third one, I'm kind of torn. Like a convertible 1964 Mustang, that's another one of my. Just for the looks, not for the speed. I'm not into speed. I just go for looks, class, something along those lines. But yeah, man, that's hell of a podcast, guys, because we've been recording for a long time. Let me see. It's is there a timestamp on here? I don't see one. I know we started at what, Caleb, 6:30 or something?
6:30.
Yeah. So and then Joe, lazy ass, didn't show up until 8.
Yep.
So 7 minutes later, we're done.
Yep. Good timing.
Well, thank you very much, guys, again for such an awesome podcast. I think, Caleb, we're gonna have you on again if you don't mind for some
I don't mind
other
at all.
cool
Thanks
stuff.
for having me.
Yeah, and then hopefully we can get to do this again in person. So the remote part is just, it's not that much fun. Gadgets. Don't forget about gadgets, Joe.
We never do.
Listen, I got a couple of good ones. Hopefully you do too.
Yeah.
So we got a couple of them, actually more than a couple this time, since one of the episodes we didn't have any unprepared podcasters. So immature. My first one is sort of related to our topic today. Sort of. It's right around, because look, when you're working on cars, if you've ever worked on cars, even if you haven't worked on cars, you're a homeowner or somewhere along those lines, heavy things, it's pain in the tuchus to lift them. And so what I present to you today is a powered hand truck. It is by Maxinex or Makinex, Makinex. We'll put in the actually, you should be able to see that on the screen right now, but so it's a pretty cool concept, Joe. You can lift a lot with it. I'm wondering if it says up to like 300 some plus pounds. So like if you're trying to get the some heavy parts of your car and your shop from one place to the other, it'll become handy. If there's a delivery truck that's parked out there and the stuff is on it, you don't need a backhoe, or not a backhoe. What's it called? The skid steer to get it off the thing, or
you get a forklift or anything
or
like
forklift, but this one would do the job. And it's a little on the pricey side, but if you have a shop, I think it's worth it. And you can moves things in and out of the shop pretty easily. I remember when my wood stove was delivered at my house, and I had to call 4 different friends to help me bring it in the house, and the thing weighed 400 pounds, and it was just a nightmare. So things like that you could move it with. It's pretty neat. Check it out. Links right below, and it does an excellent job. Your turn, Joe.
So what I have is kind of holographic heads-up display for your dashboard.
Get out.
Mm-hmm. Holographic is probably not the most accurate term. It's more of like I guess it is. It's this one I'm looking at by Exploride. They more or less project up on a piece of glass. So it's for the most part see-through, except for the information that it's displaying.
Yeah.
Looks like you can see maps more or less. I think you can hook it up with your phone. Better or worse, calls, text, but the main thing would be
GPS.
maps.
Could you do GPS? Oh,
yeah. GPS. Then they also have more like integrated into your window, your dash, whatever, windshield. It looks like more of like an augmented reality display where it will trace your track for you and give you your speed, any obstacles coming up, all of that just right in your vision.
What's it called?
Easily.
Like, is there a name for it? Who makes it?
This one, it looks this is for Porsche by Weybray.
Nice.
Which
All right,
is
so
nice.
we'll have to make sure we'll include the link.
Yeah.
Wow, that sounds fascinating. I remember my 2005 Cadillac. The SDS I had an option, which obviously, of course, I didn't get one, but in the series there was an option, something very similar, where the speed and road conditions or something similar to those things, like in-dash information, would be displayed on your windshield, so you didn't have to bend your neck or whatever, and that was pretty neat, but I didn't get it.
That would be nice.
Yeah. All right. My turn again, or
Yeah.
You're okay. So the next one is I think still a concept. Segway. It's by Segway. I'm sure everybody's familiar with Segways. If you've been to vacation on beaches or boardwalks around the country and scenic areas, then you probably have either seen or mounted yourself on a Segway, and in fact some cops use it too in different jurisdictions in different cities. This is not an endorsement for cops. I'm just mentioning it for a reference.
Mall cops.
Yep, no blue lines for me. So Segway has this thing called S-Pod, S-Pod, and it's an electric wheelchair that's like, one step, like a century ahead. Like, we've never seen a wheelchair like that. That's so fancy and like, nice looking. So, and it's got big wheels, and it does quite a bit. So there's that for you. Looks like it can go in one charge. It can go 43.5 miles when the weight is about 330 pounds, and can do 10 degree grade hills pretty easily, and the top speed is almost 25 miles an hour.
That's pretty good for just cruising around.
Yeah, so you live in a city, man. That's fast.
Yeah.
That's good. I mean, some of the 49cc motorcycles, what do you call them? The mopeds or the
little
scooters
and stuff, yeah.
It's almost there, man.
I wonder if it's street legal. That'd be pretty
Probably
cool.
not, but sidewalks for sure.
Yeah.
Looks pretty slick. Take a look and admire and hope for better future.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we say goodbye to you.
Yep. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Please subscribe to us via iTunes, Stitcher, Google Music, and YouTube. And visit us on engineering.tech. This was Engineering Tech Show.